Let's talk a little college football. It was a fun week down in the Alamo City in San Antonio as the UTSA Roadrunners even their record at 1-1 with a win over Texas State. And here to talk about it is the host of Alamo Audible on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Republic of Football podcast network. It's our friend Jared Kalmus. Jared, how are you?
Hey, doing great. Happy to be here. Long time listener, long time subscriber, first time guest. So thank you guys so much for having me on.
Fantastic. Appreciate you hopping on with us. Before we get into the game and kind of the state of the program down there with UTSA right now, I know you were there this weekend at the big Texas State and UTSA game. I know there was a massive crowd down there, a lot of buzz around this game. Can you tell us what the scene was like down there in the Alamo Dome this weekend?
Yeah, it was awesome. Honestly, it was hard to not sit in a seat in the Alamo Dome and not remind yourself of what makes this sport so great. I mean, as we've seen the Pac-12 disintegrate, regionality just getting thrown out the window in college sports, to see nearly 50,000 neighbors, friends, family members all come together to watch, their alma maters and their favorite teams, their local teams. It was just a really beautiful thing. And I think fans on both sides went home with a great experience.
So UTSA comes away with a narrow win over Texas State. It's an important win for them to get it to even their record at 1-1. Through two games with UTSA, I'm interested in what has maybe surprised you, either in the positive or the negative, about the Roadrunners this year.
The strength of this team has just completely flipped from the last two seasons. UTSA's offense was one of the best in the country in 2021 and 2022. They had a really strong group of athletes at the specialist positions, obviously starting with Frank Harris, who I'm sure most listeners are well familiar with. And the defense has been just good enough, to win Conference USA. Has kind of been the way that I've seen them. Definitely some weaknesses, especially in that secondary. The script has been flipped in 2023. The defense looks nearly elite, to be honest. I mean, they have shown incredible strength, depth, athleticism. The offense, though, is just not as sharp as we have seen it in the past 2 years. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. We just talked about it in our most recent episode of Alamo Audible on our Republic of Football podcast network. So let me get that plug in there. We dive into the details. But, I think for the most part, it all comes down to Frank Harris. For those that don't know, he has suffered a lot of injuries throughout his career at San Antonio and also as a high school recruit. And he missed, almost all of summer, all of the spring, and maybe a bit of fall camp. So I think there's a bit of rust there. And the offense just hasn't really clicked into place. If they're moving the ball, but there's practically no explosive plays to look at. And, it kind of feels like they're on the precipice of breaking out some long runs and stuff like that. Hopefully that comes soon for the Roadrunners. But it's just been really interesting to adjust kind of my expectations of this team from one that's going to, score with anyone in the country to someone whose defense is going to lead the way in their victories, perhaps.
Talking to Jared Kalmus of the Alamo Audible on the Republic of Football podcast network here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. It's hard to ignore the Frank Harris question. Because I think it's fair to say that the first two games he has not looked like himself. He's not looked like that all-conference caliber quarterback that we've come to expect, and a guy that I think everybody around these offices like to say, hey, like this is actually the best-kept secret in one of the best-kept secrets in college football. What is right now through two games within the UTSA fan base and within kind of people who follow the team? What is the level of concern right now with Frank Harris? Is it kind of a thought of like, let's wait and see if he breaks out of it, or is there real concern that we need to start looking elsewhere if things don't improve?
I think it's somewhere in between those two. I think there is concern for sure, but I don't think that the perception is like, he can't finish the year. There was a moment in that Texas State game where it felt that way. He went out for one play, came back in, went out again. They took the card out, and we're like, oh gosh, this might be it. But he finished the game, and he was a little hobbled, right? But it turned out to be a toe injury. Mm-hmm. So I think right now I kind of see it more as a midterm concern. Like the toe injuries are weird in that all you can do to recover from that is to rest. And UTSA is in a kind of interesting scenario schedule-wise. They've got this game against Army on Friday, so the short week. Tough to put a semi-injured quarterback out there on a short week. And then they've got a game against Tennessee that's obviously going to be really tough. And then they actually have a bye week before they start conference play. So, I think there's an argument to be made that maybe Frank should be rested for a couple weeks and then come in, ready to go for conference play. But Frank is just one of the toughest guys I've ever seen play for the Roadrunners. And I think that if he's physically capable of stepping on the field, even if he's not 100%, he's going to push really hard for the coaching staff to put him out there. And maybe they just have to adjust the offense accordingly. More of a pocket passing type of offense, which we saw a lot of in that second half of the Texas State game.
There's another part of the passing game that is worth mentioning, and there was, I think, maybe, I don't want to say a concern, but certainly a curiosity heading into the season, which was the receiving core. Zachary Franklin enters the transfer portal late, ends up at Ole Miss, which kind of takes away another kind of all-conference caliber type weapon to this offense. But it does seem like guys like Joshua Cephas have stepped up in a big way. What is your read on what you've seen from the receiver core so far this season?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think that it's a mix of guys not getting open, and when they are getting open, they're getting missed in the progressions from the quarterbacks. So I think you guys are probably big fans of David Amador, who was a runner-up state championship at North Shore, so he's playing as a true freshman. He had a nice 20-yard gain against Houston. David McQueen from Jacksonville has also shown a lot of promise, just game-breaking speed. But they haven't really been able to work those guys into the offense in like the manner that Zachary and JT Clark were last year. So that's something to monitor. I think those guys have been great players, but they're so young. And, Frank is, dealing with these injuries, offensive line injuries as well. So it's just kind of a mix of issues that are holding the passing game back, I think. JT Clark actually stepped on the field for a play against Texas State last week. So that was interesting. We'll see if he's back fully for Army or not. He's still wearing a knee brace, but he was throwing it out. So I think that's a huge, huge boost to this offense to get one more, all-conference talent that has skins on the wall, that has shown that they can produce at this level, and maybe relieve a bit of that pressure on those younger receivers who are kind of developing still.
Talking with Jared Kalmus of Alamo Audible on the Republic of Football Podcast Network here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TFToday. I do want to ask you about the defense because I know that this has been obviously the star of the show through the first couple of weeks. There were guys that we anticipated to be real stars, specifically Jamal Ligon and guys like Rashad Wisdom. Who has surprised you on this defense that has kind of, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, but has certainly like maybe carried more than the load that you anticipated early in the season?
Yeah, so I think the cornerback transfer, Cam Alexander, he was an all-conference player at Sam Houston State. A lot of guys on the Bearcats roster only played 4 games last year to maintain eligibility to redshirt to transfer. Alexander's one of those guys, and he stepped into a starting role right away at UTSA. Kind of figured one of those transfers would step up and grab that spot. Wasn't sure who it would be. But Cam has been great at UTSA. I mean, I can only think of one play where he's gotten beat this season, and it was a total 50-50 ball. Great catch from the receiver. He's been a great tackler for UTSA as well. So I think it's just a matter of time until he gets a pick. And that the defense, as great as they've been, they have not generated a turnover this season. So, Army is starting to pass the ball a little bit. Not the most crisp passing game. Obviously they're getting used to this new offense of theirs. So maybe there's a chance Alexander goes up and gets that first pick, but he has definitely caught my eye, and I think he's going to perform pretty well heading into the conference play.
And that's actually a good place to leave it here is with this Saturday, 6 o'clock there at the Alamo Dome on ESPN. You can watch Army and UTSA. What are you keeping an eye on in this game? I know this is a newish look Army team, or at least an evolving Army offense. What are you keeping a close eye on heading into this weekend's game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the quarterback situation is top of mind, right? Whether Frank plays or not. If he's not able to go, Eddie Lee Marburger is probably going to be the starting quarterback, or at least play the majority of snaps. Hashtag let ELM cook, obviously. But Eddie has not looked super comfortable on the field the last few times he's been on. But, getting a whole week running with the starters and practice and knowing that you might be the starter heading into the week, if that's what's happening, might give him a confidence boost. It would be great to just see him go out there and take the reins and show that UTSA does have a backup that they can feel comfortable with, and get a couple of touchdowns to his name. So I think that's really the name of the game. I feel pretty well about UTSA's defense, maintaining their production and holding Army, to under, a handful of scores or, a couple of scores. but they're going to have to find a way to score some points, and that's been a struggle for them so far.
He's Jared Kalmus. You can hear his fine work on Alamo Audible and part of the Republic of Football podcast network. We're subscribed to Republic of Football wherever you get your podcasts. Jared, appreciate your time and enjoy the game on Saturday.
Friday, yeah.
Friday, that's right. Oh my gosh, see, this
I know.
This is the problem. We cannot have games on Friday. That's a high school football night.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure. I'll be back anytime you want me.
I want to watch UTSA and Army. That's fine. Thanks, Jared. There it goes. Friday night. See, that's the problem.
Yeah, that should be illegal.
I know. Like, Friday night, I kept saying, like, I saw 6 o'clock ESPN, and literally, I'm like, all right.
Saturday.
My evening is planned out. I'm going to sit
Your
back.
Your evening is planned out. You'll be at Bally Sports.
That's the problem. Now I can't watch UTSA and Army, which are two teams I love, as you know. You know the quarterback for, by the way, you know who the quarterback for Army is?
I do. Shoot.
This is not like a quiz. This is more of a curiosity.
No, I know, but I did know. Who is it?
It's Bryson Daly.
Yes.
Bryson Daly from Abernathy.
Yes.
That's right. So this is a homecoming for him, coming back to the Lone Star State to play. That's very cool that he gets to come home and play. But that'll be a fun game Friday night, apparently. Army and UTSA, 6 o'clock on ESPN. So make sure you check that out. Or, like, 3-screen it.
Yeah.
Texas football tonight,
Mm-hmm.
football Friday, and Army and UTSA.
Every Texan's dream.
Anyway, we appreciate Jared Kalmus of Alamo Audible. Great listen there on Republic Football Podcast Network.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.